Super excited to work on this project with you. It's been a pleasure. We've been working on this for about 9 months. Would love to have you give a little insight into your thoughts around the road to red and what we're trying to do here in Colorado.
Heidi, happy to do it, and thanks so much. And the collision of schedules continues. I've got another board meeting that I'm chairman of, and it's budget season, so I'm going to have to scoot. But I thought I'd at least provide a few overarching thoughts, or shall I say the F-22 flyby, and then let you take it from there. But here's the reason that I've been involved in this for quite a while, like Heidi said, 8 or 9 months. And in my personal opinions, I think a lot of this, many on the Zoom call will agree with, but I really feel like there's been an insidious undercurrent going on in the country, destroying our foundational principles, the very heart and fabric of our country, and our families, which is so important. And we may even be close to a tipping point, which has got me always involved, but I think the time is more critical than ever. And I know out there talking with all my friends, there's a lot of discouragement about what's happening, how the elections have gone. And every once in a while, you got to look for a ray of hope. But if you look at what's happened with the Bud Light and Target corporate woke examples and the backlash and what's occurred, I think it tells you that there's also much broader undercurrent of support out there that we just need to generate and get engaged with. But, you know, the problem is, as I've seen, this discouragement causes silence, a complacency, and even a fear of retribution or whatever else. None of those are our friend if we want to try and make some progress here. And the only way to overcome the fear and intimidation, I think, is a larger, informed, collaborative grassroots of people speaking out with what is needed, a larger collective voice to help reach a consensus that we haven't had for a while. And part of that's for the reasons I mentioned before, but that's why the road to red, I think, is so important, and why I have been involved and chose to be one of the early champions for this. Let me just quickly mention 4 key things that you'll hear about from Heidi before I have to leave and go to this other meeting. One thing that's important: this is not a new experimental startup. We get to immerse ourselves in a template from Texas called Pale Horse Strategies, where over the last 8 or 10 years, 2 very prominent families, Tim Dunn and the Wilkes family, spent $10 million trying to perfect something, because they had a vision and saw in Texas what was happening in Colorado, a little lurch to the left. And so they had created something down there, made the mistakes and learned from their lessons. We don't have any sugar daddies here in Colorado to do it, but we have a handful of initial key supporters that we've already raised about 600,000, 7 or 8 or 9 of us. And we're looking to increase that number of initial funding champions to serve as the springboard that we need. But the key element of that is we get to use their template and their people until we get better established. So that's kind of the first key point. There's a unique secret sauce with this in my mind, and that's what Heidi is doing with her team. They're searching out and identifying a number of existing and well-purposed but fragmented groups that are like-minded like we are, but they're fragmented. We want to bring them together under our tent to coalesce and coordinate efforts and a narrative that will assist in that consensus and hopefully improve the election outcomes. And ultimately, the goal is to even further psychologically and participatory buy-in from this larger grassroots, getting them to donate. Once we get this established, getting that grassroots to donate, to make small and whatever donations they can. But as we all know, once you put money in, you become psychologically engaged. Third thing is, you'll hear about Nucleus, a comprehensive and holistic digital and social media effort like nothing we've ever seen before in Colorado. And finally, we can hopefully do and will do an end run on the fake news media who skews everything that the electorate needs to hear with our own Rocky Mountain voice. So these are the key elements that I think are important. And I think, like a lot of you on the call, I am most concerned. I grew up as a very happy, optimistic kid with a lot of hope, and I didn't even realize it at the time until I see what they're doing to our kids and grandkids now. I want my grandkids, I have 11 of them now, to grow up and enjoy the freedoms that we had, the spark of hope that is important, and even recognize the rugged individualism that we have had for years in Colorado, that I think we're losing. So, and then key thing is, obviously, we have workhorse champions. You got Heidi Ganal that's going to talk about it today. Her wingman, Marcus Patinos, is also helping out. They are fully committed to make this work, but it's going to take a lot of people. So we can only do this if we get the springboard going and get some funding in early to make sure that we can start to function as an entity that you'll hear a lot about. So I truly think that you're going to enjoy hearing what Heidi's going to tell you. I just wanted to do a flyby and let you know that I've been involved in this for about 9 months and spent a lot of time researching this. Heidi will also tell you about the amount of time she spent down in Fort Worth, Texas at the headquarters of Pale Horse Strategies. So I would love to be on the call for the rest of it, but duty calls and another board that I'm chairman of. So with that, Heidi, I'll let you take over, and I appreciate you allowing me to give a little introductory thought process about what this we're doing and the exciting thing I think we can accomplish. Thanks a lot, everybody.
Well, thank you, Buzz. I appreciate that introduction. You've been such a warrior in helping me on this front. As you can probably guess, after the election last year, it was a rough few months, a gut punch, trying to figure out what the heck happened and where our state was going, why people resoundingly decided to reelect the same people that have put our state in a bad position.
Hey, Heidi, before I get off, I had 2 messages come through. Some people are having trouble getting linked in, but then I'm going to drop off. So I hope they can somehow do that.
Cool, Buzz. I think you have the link. If you can send that link on to anyone,
Okay.
That would be great.
Got it.
Put
Okay,
it in your
thanks.
text message.
Got it.
So after the election, of course, it was a rough go of it. But I wanted to figure out like what we learned from the process. And as a business person, a CEO, when I want to do something, I try and go find people who have done what I want to do before so that I don't have to reinvent the wheel. So one of the things Marcus and I did was travel the country and talk to a lot of folks who had been involved in turning blue states red and said, give us hope. Like, tell us how you did this. What tactically did you do to turn things around? And so one of the most impressive programs that we saw was in Texas. And 10 years ago, Texas was 1 seat away, a couple seats away maybe from losing the legislature and turning blue. And a couple of the families that Buzz talked about realized that they needed to act and act fast. And so they did a few things that have made a tremendous difference in Texas and really turned things towards red rather than blue, which is absolutely vital to protecting our country. Texas is such an important state, but so is Colorado to many of us. I have 4 small children, and I want them to stay here, to live here, to have grandkids here, as I know most of you do too. And I felt hopeless like most of you as well. But after hearing this plan and building one for Colorado mimicked off of it, I feel much better. So I'm excited to share it with you. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and put us into a PowerPoint. If you can see the screen, if you can see the Road to Red PowerPoint, go ahead and give me a thumbs up so I know it's working okay. Good. Okay, so the Road to Red is a 9-month effort to build a strategic plan based off of what Texas had done, but also what some other folks had done around the country to really shift the tide in their states. And the people in Texas have built an impressive machine down there, one that I think we can duplicate. I come from the franchise industry. I built Camp Bow Wow. And so what I love about franchising is that you can duplicate systems and processes and hopefully, keep you from having to learn a lot of the lessons that the original franchisor made. So that's what we did. We worked with the folks in Texas to build a specific plan for Colorado, and also Tudor Dixon in Michigan is going to try it there as a pilot as well. We've run conservative politics in Colorado the same way for a couple decades. I've been a big part of that, whether it's my, role as a regent or just involved in politics or as a donor. And obviously it hasn't worked very well. And I know we all have such a good heart and have wanted it to and have tried lots of different things, but it's time for a new approach, a drastically different approach, and one that's been tested elsewhere that we know has worked, not just something that we're, putting our finger in the air and saying, let's try this. The first problem that we face is that we have no way to get our message out in Colorado. I felt every day when I got up to run for governor that I was running against the liberal media most hours of the day. And it was very frustrating and very distracting. And you would do an hour interview with a 9 News or, a Colorado Public Radio, and the headline would be completely different than what you talked about policy-wise. And they would spread it like wildfire. And all of a sudden the narrative was whatever headline they decided they wanted. And it wasn't what my intent or Joe O'Day's intent or John Kellner, any of us that were running. It was super frustrating. So that's one of the key problems we have to solve for. So we need to build a messaging machine, a way to get our message out. There's lots of good conservative media folks in Colorado, but not a one source that everyone knows to go to like they have in Texas, which is called Texas Scorecard. Doesn't sound like a media organization, but it's 1 million people strong. The second problem is that conservatives are in silos in Colorado. We've got lots of groups, hundreds of groups around the state that care about different issues and are working on different things, but they don't work together. They don't communicate. They don't share resources. And we've got a lot of good intentioned folks, but they don't have the resources to make a difference or to go big or to grow. So we need to come together. And we need to rebuild our movement in a more effective way where we work together, we align messaging, we share resources, and we really turn the tide here in Colorado. Now, we're 1 million strong. If you look at the 2022 election that voted our way, and 2 million people did not vote in the governor's race. So out of 4.4 million, 2 million sat on the sidelines. We lost, many of the races were lost by double digits, a few 100,000 votes, that if we can really connect with voters and get some of them to turn out that didn't, it can make a big difference in our elections. So we need to rebuild our movement. The other thing was the frustration around data and technology in our state. We had Campaign Sidekick, which would help us do door knocking and canvassing, I360, the GOP data center, lots of different fragmented apps and platforms that we were supposed to use, some of which we had to pay a lot of money for. None of it was good. It wasn't effective data. It was, you would go knock on 10 doors and 3 of the doors would be not at all what was in the system. It was very frustrating and wasted a lot of time. The Democrats are incredible at this. They have wonderful technology that helps them be very effective. They're constantly monitoring the polling data as well as the voter data, knowing exactly whose doors to knock on, exactly who to call, exactly who to email, and exactly who to target with their advertising dollars. We can get there, but we have to have good, solid data that we know is reliable and a technology platform that can help us do the work. So we need top-notch data and technology to execute our plan. Finally, donor money, and I'm one of them, is not spent effectively in Colorado. This was one of the biggest things they did in Texas to make a difference. As donors, we have our pet causes, the things that we care about, whether it's a C4, a PAC, a C3, a candidate, and we donate to all these different factions. And every one of those groups has to hire their own development person, their own lawyer, their own marketing person. They have their staff. Well, what if you could create a centralized place where we provide all that support and services? We as donors invest in that resource, and the nonprofits, the folks out there doing the work don't have to pay for it. They have to do good things with the support and services that we're providing, but it centralizes the support and services so that each individual group and effort doesn't have to invest in their own building of staff and technology and support and services. So we need to build an effective way to invest our money as donors. So we're going to build and invest into a movement, rebuilding our movement here. We're going to build a messaging machine, and we are going to leverage good top-notch data and technology. Now, the names of these that you'll see come up are Red Horse is the way we're going to build the movement. Rocky Mountain Voice is the messaging machine. And Nucleus is the existing technology and data platform that we're going to use to execute this. Sorry, guys. There we go. So let's see it in action. Let's look at what they did in Texas and see how it'll translate up here in Colorado. So if you look at this pyramid, usually the pyramid is flipped in most states where the consultants, a lot of the heavyweights in politics control the narrative and push it down to everybody. What they've done in Texas is flip that pyramid so that the groups all over the state, the activists, the donors, the folks that are really investing in turning Colorado around, or Texas in this case, have the ability to make a bigger impact. So if you see this pyramid, you've got some examples of these groups across the state. There are several hundred groups across Texas that participate in this, and they might be focused on an issue. They might be focused on a geography, but there's lots of little lights around the state. Then on the bottom of the pyramid, you see Texas Scorecard, which is the media, the messaging machine, which they don't charge for. It's a subscription platform, but they have 1 million people strong that pay attention to the messaging that comes out of Texas Scorecard every day, to really help people stay connected and pay attention to what's happening and where their resources, time, talent, and treasure can be best used, whatever the issue is. We saw that with the special session around school choice just over the last weeks. We also saw it with the Ken Paxton impeachment process. This system worked to activate that. On the right-hand side, you see Nucleus, which is the technology support. And then on the left side, the horse is Pale Horse, which is the agency that supports all these grassroots groups. Now, in the middle, you see all these groups that are focused on issues. These are C4s, C3s. In some cases, they have PACs that help candidates. But they have over 50 of these groups that are focused on issues across Texas. And the cool thing about this is these groups don't need a big staff. They may have an executive director, but they get their support and services from Pale Horse that has a team of 50 to 60 people in Fort Worth that provide all the support, whether it's marketing, compliance, you name it, polling data, whatever it is. And then they can go out and spend their resources that they raise, because they all do small donor investments with the people that care about that issue on the specific issue and making a difference that way. Now, you think about all those hundreds of groups around the state that are tagged with people that care about maybe vaccine choice or homeschool or gun rights. And in the data and technology, we can invite them to be part of whatever group it is that's focused on that issue. So they're involved at their local level in the smaller group, and then they're involved in the specific issue groups that they care about. Now, some of these groups are 50, 60,000 strong. They make a huge impact. The Texas Homeschool Coalition has been around for a long time. They're very impactful, and they do a good job of having a united voice for the homeschool families across Texas. So this is what it looks like. Sorry, guys. Let me get to the next slide. It doesn't want to switch. That's how we developed the Road to Red. We need to build a messaging machine, which is the Rocky Mountain Voice. That's our first focus. We'd like to launch this January 10th, which is the first day of legislative session. Now, what's different about Rocky Mountain Voice from Complete Colorado or Campfire Colorado or Colorado Politics is that it's an aggregator. So it's one place, a website where you can go to get all of those news outlets. You can get the various podcasts, the various newspaper links. You can get the radio links. All of the conservative voices, or even the, other voices, will be on one platform that you can go to simply by just visiting the website. It'll be updated every day with new content. We'll also have our own writers, our own editor, who can help citizens across the state have a voice as well and do op-eds and columns, etc. The other thing we'll do is, help set the narrative. Like, okay, we've done this polling. This is how Coloradans feel about housing or gun rights or abortion, whatever the issue is. And folks, this is the questions that they need answered on the issue. So we may have a columnist do an article. We may have a documentary done. We may have video content that we put out on social media. But it's a really way to aggregate our voice and base our voice on more proven data or polling rather than just a whim of what somebody thinks the conservative movement in Colorado wants to hear. It'll consist of the website. It'll also have podcasts. My Unleashed podcast will be under that as one of many. We'll have a Mountain Minute newsletter that comes out every day, which is a quick 5-minute read, the top news of the day, exactly what we want our folks focused on in the grassroots. We'll have a speakers bureau so that as you host Lincoln dinners across the state, or if you have an event and you want a really fantastic speaker, we'll have free speakers, we'll have paid speakers from around the country. We'll be able to coordinate that for you and get some of the top conservative speakers across the country in Colorado to help us spread the message and have exciting, cool events that people really want to engage in. And then, of course, we'll be at all the events across the state as a sponsor, collecting information and, really getting our message out there. We think the tipping point for where this will be really impactful is at about 250,000 subscribers. I already have about 50,000 on my podcast and my newsletter. So we'll start there and we'll grow it, hopefully very quickly. But that's part of what the funding is for, which you'll see later. And then we need top-notch data and technology to execute our plan. That's where Nucleus comes in. So the founder of Nucleus is Brad Parscale, who ran Donald Trump's campaign in 2016. And I don't know if you remember, but they did an amazing job at leveraging digital technology and social media to win that election. He has worked with some of these families in Texas to develop a proprietary platform because the left kept canceling every platform he used or as he would add in different elements to it. So he built our own. And this is something that is very inexpensive for grassroots groups and candidates to use. We will be the parent organization, and so we can get the price down to about $50 a month for a group. So Women of Weld, Stand for the Constitution, Jeffco Kids First, they pay $50 a month. They have access to all the data that we are going to purchase. So we are going to have the best possible data on voters in Colorado that includes a lot more than just your I-360 or your Republican GOP data. It'll help us reach the right voters with the right message in a timely manner. It'll also have a mobile app that's in beta testing right now to help with door-to-door canvassing. It'll use artificial intelligence to make sure that we're messaging things correctly, that candidates are too. It'll allow us to do compliance better and streamline event management, fundraising, and outreach efforts, which is going to be magical for us here in Colorado. We haven't had that before. And I lived it the last couple of years. It was really frustrating at a very inexpensive cost for the end users. Next, we need to invest in and build an effective movement. This is, I think, the special sauce of this whole plan. You've got all these grassroots groups. Like I said, they don't have a lot of support. They don't have a lot of money. They're all fighting for the same dollars to hire the same people, invest in the same technology. So we'll put them on Nucleus so they have great technology. We'll help them with fundraising, with political strategy, with polling. We'll help them with event coordination, legal advice, PR, media relations, advertising, branding, you name it. And the neat thing about this, guys, is that the Texas folks are willing to provide all of that support for as long as we need until we get up and going, a year or 2 years, whatever we need. So if the Women of Weld or Jeffco Kids First needs a new website or they need help hosting an event, we've got this team of amazing people who are some of the top political strategists and folks on the ground, grassroots builders in Texas that are willing to help in Colorado. You know, a lot of them love Colorado too. They love skiing up here, vacationing up here. They want to see our state go in the right direction too. They're amazing folks. I've gotten to spend a lot of time down there with them, and they really, really know their stuff. And guess what? They're not in it for the money. They aren't for hire out to anybody. They don't contract with anyone outside of just purely helping the grassroots groups for free down in Texas and now up in Colorado. And they did that intentionally so that this is not another consulting firm coming into our state trying to sell their services. This is a very different model and one that I think has worked very well in Texas for about 10 years now. So in Colorado, what will this look like? You've got your groups, and I haven't talked to these groups. They're not technically part of the organization, but I just wanted to give examples of different geographic groups, different folks around the state that can use our services and that we will provide support for through Red Horse, which is the Colorado name, And Rocky Mountain Voice, we can get the message out there and help them have one place to go for getting their voice out. And then Nucleus, the technology platform. As far as the groups in the middle, the issue groups, we'll probably start with just a couple to get going. The first one we absolutely are going to start with is Coloradans for Fiscal Responsibility. We saw that this is the one place where Republicans can come together, conservatives can come together in Colorado and agree and build a movement and get something done with Prop HH. It was a huge success getting that turned down, 60-40. Now, what happened at the Capitol last night is a whole different story. But at least we were able to see our side come together and stop a very, very detrimental ballot initiative that was going across in Colorado. So we'll have the Coloradans for Fiscal Responsibility. We'll have a legislator scorecard where we'll rank them on their fiscal responsibility to the state. We're thinking we'll probably start with the Colorado Family Project also around school choice, around what's happening in the schools and families, parental rights. That's a really important issue for conservatives and unaffiliateds and Democrats in Colorado that we can come together on. And finally, Coloradans Defending Freedom, which will defend our First Amendment, Second Amendment, and other critical rights to that are being trampled on right now in Colorado. So this is the road to red. We're going to build an effective messaging machine. We're going to build an effective movement, and we're going to win elections again. This is not a magical solution that we're going to see turn things around very, very quickly. It's going to take a lot of time, a lot of elbow grease, and a lot of commitment. But I know if you're on this call and if you're watching this video, you care deeply about Colorado. We can absolutely do this. We have to have the wherewithal to stay strong and do this for a long time. This isn't a quick fix, but it is the right path to getting back to basic blocking and tackling, building infrastructure, and, bringing our beautiful state of Colorado back to some common sense. If nothing else, if we start to win some local elections, school boards, city council, county commissioners, we can stop a lot of the damage that's happening and hopefully win back at least the House or the Senate on the state level soon and make a dramatic difference in what's happening in Colorado. I'm going to go ahead and answer some questions. I can talk a little bit about the budget and how we're going to spend the monies that we're raising. I can talk about the team, or I can talk about any concerns that you have. So I think everybody's on mute. So if you do have a question, raise your hand and I can unmute you, or you can go ahead and unmute, or you can put a question in the chat if you like. Oh, everybody's being shy. I'll go ahead and start by talking a little bit about the budget. We're trying to raise $1.2 million to launch by January 10th. As Buzz said, we're at about 600,000. Buzz and Tim Walsh have each put 75,000 in. We've got some other key players that have put in some significant amounts to help us get there. And we need to raise it pretty quickly. We're already moving forward and starting the process of getting everything built to do a January 10th launch. But here's why it's important to have this funding. The more investment we have up front, the more we can market Rocky Mountain Voice and build the infrastructure to make this go big quickly and be everywhere across the state. We don't need a big team. We need a few people on the ground to be at events across the state telling people about Rocky Mountain Voice and what we're doing. Another person to meet with grassroots groups and help get them set up on this technology and get them the support and services they need to grow. We're going to challenge these small groups, whether they're 100 people or 1,000 people, to grow, to double by the presidential election so that we have groups all over the state that are on the ground that can start to make a difference. We're going to move very quickly, and we're very excited about this. We're ready to go. Texas is ready to support us. We've already got a few groups on the technology platform, and it's going very well. I'll stop for a minute and see if we have any questions. All right. I'll talk a little bit about the team. I think we've got some incredible people recruited to help us do this. Marcus was my deputy campaign manager. He worked at Turning Point for 5 years, and he was also the student body government president at CU Boulder when I was a regent. We both ran at the same time, and he's just a get stuff done kind of guy. He'll be great as the operations lead on the team. And then we have some very talented writers and citizen journalists across the state that are ready to provide content. And then finally, We've got some operational folks that'll be on the ground that'll help us do the things we talked about with getting the grassroots groups off the ground and managing the tech side of things as well. So I think a team of 4 or 5 people to start. And we'll invest most of the initial startup money into marketing and promotions to really grow Rocky Mountain Voice as quickly as we can, so we can have a strong voice in the legislative session, first quarter, and then in the presidential race for next year. We don't want Colorado left out of that equation.
Heidi, I have a question.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. Every time I think that I'm just going to go bury my head in the sand in Costa Rica and live peacefully, I get pulled back in, and I'm happy. But you know that I have really strong ties with Texas.
Yes, I do.
Yeah. And we have 2 senators down in Texas that couldn't be any more different. We've got Senator Cruz and we've got Cornyn. But I'd like to talk to you about some of my contacts in Texas and what we're doing there, because Blue is infiltrating into Texas, and I'll talk to you about that a little bit more privately on some of my concerns, because our ranch is in Denton, Texas, and our facility is in Denton. But we do have people that we met down when we were with the Joe O'Day campaign, such as Harlan Crow and some of those types of people that are really behind Texas politics, which are really behind Colorado politics because of all our events that we had down there. So maybe we can meet for lunch and talk about some of the stuff that's going on in Texas and how we can have Texas helping more. I know the mayor of McKinney, Texas really well. My husband went to school with his wife, and we're all very close. So Texas has been, especially McKinney, has been a really good model for stuff that is mayoral across the state there. And I don't know if you knew, but he re-won his election with a 70%, which is just unbelievable numbers, as you know.
That's great. Yeah, Wendy, I'd love to. And I've spent a lot of time down there now, and they've got some incredible systems and process. They also have kind of a civil war going on in the Republican Party down there, so that's not ideal, but we've got that up here too. And one thing I get asked a lot about is, what about the GOP? Are you going to work with the GOP, or how is that going to work? Well, I get along fine with Dave, and they're doing their thing. They're focused more on lawsuits right now. I'm going to focus on rebuilding the grassroots and really building this messaging machine and getting people on this technology. I think that's what we need to do to win again in Colorado. And I think that we can work side by side. We don't have to be at odds at all. I've got several GOP county groups that are going on the platform that appreciate the support and the help. And we're all in this together. So at the end of the day, we have to work together, not against each other. So I'm going to do what I can to make this a kumbaya experience and bring everyone in Colorado together on this effort. I've also talked to Governor Owens and some of the folks working on the ballot initiatives, Michael Fields and those warriors that are doing the great work on Prop HH, and they're going to continue to work on the ballot initiative. So we have a very special niche that we're trying to fill, and that's really getting the activists, the grassroots folks across the state, rowing in the right direction and leading effective efforts to make a difference here in Colorado, giving them good data and technology to do their jobs, and then also building a messaging machine so that we can actually get some alternative voices out there than what the echo chamber likes to tell us all the time. And I think we'll work with the Gazette and some of the other great publications and organizations across the state, John Caldera, to highlight their efforts, not go against them, but to highlight and bring everybody up and raise the ocean on the media side, the messaging side.
Okay, good. Well, I'm there.
Thanks, Wendy. You've been a warrior.
100%. I know it's been a roller coaster ride for sure and we had the best ticket in 2022 that we could have ever had in decades. And to find out that 2 million people did not vote, it just blows my mind. I didn't know that those numbers were there.
Yes. And I think, obviously the media made a big impact on Joe and myself and the other candidates, as did the organization. The Democrats had, from what we understand, they had over 4,000 paid workers across the state that were ballot harvesting or going out and just collecting, votes, getting people to turn in their ballots, in certain specific areas. And you can see it when you look at the turnout numbers, exactly what they wanted, where they wanted people to turn out. They were able to do that. We rely more on volunteers. So we've really got to get our folks organized and get them effective tools to do their jobs and inspire them to turn out. Well, if there are no other questions, I don't see any other questions. Anyone else? I'll go ahead and wrap up. I am absolutely available to do one-on-one calls. So is Marcus or Buzz, Tim Walsh. We're all in this together. We're working very hard to get this launched in just a little over a month. But we're super excited. We have hope again. It was a long road to get here, but I just want to say how grateful I am to all of you for joining us for a few minutes. We're going to record this also, so we'll send out a link to everyone who attended and everyone who couldn't attend. Feel free to share that. You may want to be a little careful about who you share it with. We don't want to give the Democrats all of our ideas, or our roadmap. They probably already figured it out, but that's not going to stop us. But please feel free to share it with your friends and folks that you think might be interested in this. And, I will put my email and my phone number in the follow-up email as well. But thank you again, everyone, and have a wonderful Thanksgiving. So grateful for all of you, and gobble, gobble.
Bye. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Bye, Rebecca. Bye, Dutch.